The communication array at Lunar Base crackled with static as Captain Janice Chin pressed her ear closer to the headset. 3 days had passed since the first sighting, and the alien vessel remained in perfect synchronous orbit around Earth's moon, its obsidian surface reflecting nothing but darkness against the starfield. "Any change in its position?" asked Commander Williams, his weathered face creased with concern as he peered over Janice's shoulder at the tracking display. "None whatsoever," she replied, adjusting the frequency modulation. "It's maintaining precise geosynchronous orbit at 400 kilometers above the lunar surface. No radio emissions, no heat signatures beyond ambient background radiation. It's like it's not even there, except we can see the damn thing." The vessel was roughly triangular, measuring approximately 2 kilometers at its widest point. Its surface appeared to absorb light rather than reflect it, making detailed observation nearly impossible even with Lunar Base's most powerful telescopes. What troubled the scientific community most was how it had simply appeared 3 days ago without any prior detection, no gravitational wake, no electromagnetic disturbance, nothing to indicate its approach through the solar system. Dr. Sarah Martinez, the base's chief xenobiologist, entered the communications bay carrying a steaming cup of coffee and a worried expression. "The Global Defense Council just transmitted new orders," she announced, handing Williams a sealed data packet. "They want us to make contact." Williams broke the seal and scanned the contents, his face growing graver with each line. "They're not just asking for contact," he said finally. "They want infiltration." Janice looked up from her console. "Sir? Captain Chin, you're being reassigned to a classified operation. Code name, Luna Shadow. Your mission is to gain entry to that vessel and determine the occupant's intentions regarding Earth." The weight of the assignment settled on Janice's shoulders like a lead blanket. At 34, she was one of the youngest captains in the Space Defense Corps, but her background in xenological studies and advanced tactical operations had made her the obvious choice for first contact scenarios. Still, the idea of boarding an alien vessel with unknown technology and potentially hostile occupants was enough to make even a seasoned officer's pulse quicken. "What's our intelligence on the ship's defenses?" she asked, already mentally preparing for the briefing she knew would follow. "That's just it," Williams replied grimly. "We have none. No weapon signatures, no shield emissions, no active scans of our facilities. Either they're using technology so advanced we can't detect it, or they don't consider us a threat worth defending against," Janice finished. Dr. Martinez set down her coffee with a sharp clink. "There's another possibility we need to consider. What if they're not here for conquest? What if this is some kind of first contact protocol on their part? Then why haven't they attempted communication?" Williams countered. 3 days of silence doesn't suggest peaceful intentions." Janice stood and walked to the observation window, gazing out at the stark lunar landscape. Somewhere beyond the horizon, an alien intelligence waited in the void. The thought sent a mixture of excitement and terror through her system. "When do I leave?" she asked. 1800 hours. The stealth shuttle Prometheus has been prepped for silent running. You'll approach from the vessel's blind spot, assuming it has one, and attempt to locate an entry point. And if there isn't one? Williams handed her the mission parameters. Then you make one. The armory aboard Luna Base hummed with activity as Janice selected her equipment for the mission. The Prometheus was a state-of-the-art reconnaissance vessel, barely larger than a fighter craft but packed with the most advanced stealth technology humanity had developed. Its hull was coated with adaptive camouflage that could mimic the background radiation signature of space itself, making it virtually undetectable to conventional sensors. Chief Warrant Officer Tom Bradley, the base's equipment specialist, helped her choose from an array of cutting-edge tools. "The molecular disruptor should get you through most known metallic compounds," he explained, holding up a device that looked like an oversized stylus. "But we have no idea what materials we're dealing with." Janice clipped the device to her utility belt alongside a portable atmosphere analyzer, a quantum communicator with a range of several thousand kilometers, and a compact fusion cutter capable of burning through titanium steel composite. Her suit was a marvel of engineering, a form-fitting shell that provided life support, radiation shielding, and enhanced mobility in zero gravity. "What about weapons?" she asked, examining a selection of energy rifles. Bradley's expression grew serious. "This is the tricky part. Command wants you to go in unarmed." "Excuse me?" "Think about it from their perspective. If these beings are as advanced as their technology suggests, conventional weapons won't help you anyway. And if they're peaceful, showing up armed might provoke exactly the kind of response we're trying to avoid." Janice understood the logic but didn't like it. Going into an unknown situation without means of defense went against every tactical principle she'd learned. Still, she had to admit that Bradley was right. If the aliens wanted her dead, there probably wasn't much she could do to prevent it regardless of what weapons she carried. Dr. Martinez appeared in the doorway carrying a small device that looked like a metallic tablet. "I've prepared this for you," she said, offering the object to Janice. "It's a universal translation matrix. In theory, it should be able to analyze any form of communication, visual, auditory, even electromagnetic, and attempt to derive meaning from patterns." "In theory?" "We've never had a chance to test it on truly alien communication. It works perfectly with Earth languages, even dead ones, but who knows what we'll encounter up there." Janice took the device and activated it. The screen displayed a simple interface with various input options. "How does it work?" "Point it at whatever form of communication you encounter and let it record. The AI will analyze patterns, mathematical relationships, and attempt to build a linguistic framework. If you're lucky, you might be able to achieve basic communication within a few hours. And if I'm unlucky?" Dr. Martinez smiled grimly. "Then you'll be very lonely up there." The final piece of equipment was perhaps the most important, a quantum beacon that would allow Luna Base to track her location within the alien vessel. The device was barely larger than a coin and designed to be virtually undetectable, but it would provide a lifeline back to human space. As Janice suited up for the mission, she ran through the objectives one more time. Primary goal: determine the aliens' intentions regarding Earth. Secondary goal: gather intelligence on their technology and capabilities. Tertiary goal: establish communication if possible. Survival was listed as a priority, but she noted grimly that it wasn't at the top of the list. Commander Williams found her in the prep bay as she completed her equipment check. "Any last questions, Captain?" "Just one, sir. What happens if I don't come back?" Williams was quiet for a long moment. "Then we prepare for the worst and hope for the best. But I have confidence in you, Janice. You're one of the finest officers I've ever served with." She appreciated the sentiment, but they both knew that competence might not be enough when dealing with beings whose technology was centuries or millennia ahead of humanity's. Still, someone had to try, and she was proud to be chosen for what might be the most important mission in human history. "The Prometheus is ready for launch," announced the bay's automated system. "All personnel clear the launch area." Janice sealed her helmet and made her way to the sleek black shuttle. As she strapped herself into the pilot's seat, she took one last look at Luna Base through the cockpit window. In a few hours, she would either be making first contact with an alien species or floating dead in the vacuum of space. Either way, she was about to make history. The Prometheus slipped away from Luna Base like a shadow detaching itself from darkness. Janice had disabled all non-essential systems, running on minimal power to reduce her electromagnetic signature. The shuttle's fusion drive was operating at barely 5% capacity, providing just enough thrust to carry her toward the alien vessel without creating a detectable energy bloom. Through the cockpit's reinforced viewport, Earth hung like a blue-white marble against the infinite black of space. She was approaching the alien ship from the far side of the moon, using Luna's bulk to mask her approach until the last possible moment. According to her calculations, she would be within visual range in 37 minutes. The silence was absolute except for the quiet hum of life support systems and the occasional beep from her instruments. Radio contact with Luna Base had been suspended to maintain stealth protocols. She was truly alone now, drifting through the void toward an encounter that could change the course of human civilization. As the Prometheus rounded the lunar horizon, Janice got her first clear view of the alien vessel. Even at a distance of 50 kilometers, its size was overwhelming. The ship appeared to be constructed from a single piece of material, with no visible seams, joints, or external equipment. Its surface was so perfectly black that it seemed to absorb the light of distant stars, creating a hole in space shaped like an elongated triangle. She activated her passive sensor array and began recording everything the instruments could detect. Gravitational readings showed that the vessel was incredibly dense, far heavier than any human-built ship of comparable size. Spectral analysis revealed nothing useful. Whatever material comprised its hull was unlike anything in Earth's periodic table. "No weapons emplacements visible," she whispered into her mission log. "No apparent propulsion systems, no external communication arrays. The ship appears to be completely sealed." As she drew closer, details began to emerge from the vessel's perfect blackness. The hull wasn't completely smooth after all. Subtle geometric patterns covered its surface, forming complex mathematical relationships that seemed to shift and change depending on the viewing angle. Were they decorative, functional, or both? At 10 kilometers, her proximity alarms should have been screaming warnings about collision courses and gravitational anomalies. Instead, her instruments registered nothing more threatening than background cosmic radiation. It was as if the massive alien ship simply didn't exist in any way that human technology could properly measure. Janice brought the Prometheus to a complete stop 5 kilometers from the alien vessel and began a systematic visual survey. The ship was roughly 2 kilometers long and 800 meters at its widest point, tapering to sharp points at both ends. She could see no obvious entry ports, no airlocks, no external features that might indicate how to gain access. She activated the molecular scanner and aimed it at the ship's hull. The readings were bizarre. The material registered as both solid and permeable simultaneously, as if it existed in multiple quantum states at once. The scanner's AI struggled to process the data, finally displaying an error message indicating that the readings were outside known physical parameters. "Luna Base, this is Shadow 1. She transmitted on the quantum communicator's emergency frequency. "I'm in position and beginning close approach. The target vessel appears to be constructed of unknown materials exhibiting impossible physical properties. Proceeding with entry attempt." There was no response, as expected. The quantum communicator would record her transmissions and relay them to Luna Base when she was back in range, but for now she was on her own. Janice piloted the Prometheus closer, reducing the distance to less than 500 meters. At this range, she could see individual sections of the geometric patterns that covered the hull. They weren't random decorations, they formed complex mathematical equations that seemed to describe relationships between space, time, and energy that human physics had only theorized about. She selected what appeared to be the smoothest section of hull near the vessel's center and brought the Prometheus alongside. According to her readings, there was no atmosphere surrounding the alien ship, no magnetic field, no detectable energy emissions. It was like approaching a perfectly inert piece of matter floating in space. Janice sealed her environmental suit and prepared to exit the shuttle. The plan was simple: use the molecular disruptor to create an entry point, slip inside, and begin reconnaissance. The reality, she suspected, would be considerably more complicated. As she prepared to leave the safety of the Prometheus, she took one last look at Earth through the viewport. Somewhere on that distant blue world, billions of people were going about their daily lives, unaware that humanity's first contact with alien intelligence was about to begin in the cold vacuum of space. The transition from the Prometheus to the alien hull was surreal. Janice activated her suit's magnetic anchors and felt them grip the ship's surface with surprising strength, as if the exotic material was drawing her boots toward it rather than simply providing a surface to cling to. Her suit's radiation detectors remained silent, but she could feel something, a subtle vibration that seemed to resonate through her bones rather than her ears. She drew the molecular disruptor and aimed it at the hull where she intended to create an entry point. The device hummed to life, its energy field creating a visible distortion in the space around its emitter. She pressed the activation stud and watched as a beam of coherent energy struck the alien material. Nothing happened. Janice frowned and checked the device's settings. The disruptor was operating at full power, generating enough focused energy to cut through 3 meters of reinforced titanium. She tried again, this time holding the beam steady for a full 30 seconds. The alien hull remained completely unaffected. "Well, that's not good," she muttered, clipping the useless device back to her belt. She tried the fusion cutter next, a tool capable of burning through any known material. The high-energy plasma beam struck the hull and simply stopped. It didn't bounce off or get absorbed, it just ceased to exist where it met the alien's surface. The laws of physics seemed to be more like gentle suggestions aboard this vessel. Janice was considering her limited options when the hull beneath her feet began to change. The solid black surface started to ripple like liquid, forming patterns that spiraled outward from where she was standing. She instinctively tried to step back but found that her magnetic anchors wouldn't release. The rippling effect spread across a 3-meter circle, and then the material began to part. There was no other way to describe it. The solid hull separated like a curtain, revealing an opening that led into the ship's interior. A faint blue glow emanated from within, providing the first indication that the vessel was more than just an inert object. Janice's heart hammered in her chest as she stared into the opening. Her suit's atmosphere sensors detected a breathable environment beyond the hull. 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, with trace amounts of argon. The temperature was a comfortable 22 degrees Celsius. It was almost as if the ship knew she was coming and had prepared accordingly. She activated her mission recorder and stepped forward into the opening. Shadow 1 entering alien vessel. The ship appears to have invited me in. Hull opened spontaneously after failed attempts to force entry. Atmosphere is Earth normal. The interior of the ship was unlike anything she had imagined. The walls, floor, and ceiling were composed of the same dark material as the hull, but here they glowed with soft bioluminescent patterns that shifted and flowed like living things. The corridor stretched ahead for roughly 50 meters before branching into multiple directions. There was no visible source of gravity, yet she felt firmly anchored to what she had decided to think of as the floor. As she moved deeper into the vessel, Janice noticed that the geometric patterns on the walls weren't random decorations. They were responding to her presence. The bioluminescent traceries would brighten as she approached, then fade as she passed. It was as if the ship itself was aware of her movements. The air had a strange quality to it, carrying sounds in ways that didn't quite make sense. Her footsteps seemed to echo from directions that shouldn't be possible, and she could swear she heard something like music, harmonic resonances that seemed to come from the ship's structure itself. She reached the first junction and paused to consult her scanner. The device's readings were erratic, showing corridors that led in directions that violated three-dimensional geometry. According to the display, one passage led both up and down simultaneously, while another appeared to curve back on itself in a way that should have been impossible. "The ship's internal structure doesn't conform to Euclidean geometry," she reported. "I'm seeing passages that exist in more than 3 dimensions. Navigation is going to be challenging." She chose the leftmost corridor at random and continued deeper into the vessel. The walls here were covered with what looked like hieroglyphic symbols, but as she watched, they began to shift and change. The universal translator in her pack was recording everything, its AI working frantically to find patterns in the alien script. After another 50 meters, the corridor opened into a vast chamber that defied all logic. The space was spherical, with no apparent floor or ceiling, yet Janice found herself standing on a surface that felt solid beneath her feet. The chamber was filled with floating objects, geometric shapes that rotated slowly in complex patterns, pulsing with internal light. At the center of the sphere hung something that made her breath catch in her throat. It was clearly artificial, a construction of crystalline materials and flowing energy that formed patterns of impossible beauty. And surrounding it, barely visible in the shifting light, were figures. They were tall and graceful, with elongated limbs and features that seemed to shift between familiar and utterly alien. Their skin had a translucent quality, showing the flow of what might have been blood or energy beneath its surface. They moved with fluid precision, tending to the central construct with movements that seemed more like dance than work. One of the beings turned toward her, and Janice found herself looking into eyes that held the depth of ancient oceans. There was intelligence there, vast and patient, along with something that might have been curiosity. The being raised what might have been a hand in greeting, and spoke. The sound was unlike anything in human experience, harmonics that seemed to bypass her ears and resonate directly in her consciousness. Her universal translator chittered frantically, trying to process the complex acoustic patterns. After several seconds, text appeared on its display. "Welcome, small one from the third planet. We have been expecting you." Janice stared at the translation display, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. The universal translator was working, actually working, after only a few seconds of exposure to the alien language. Either Dr. Martinez had created a device far more sophisticated than anyone realized, or these beings were using communication methods that weren't as alien as their appearance suggested. The creature who had spoken moved closer, its movements flowing like water in zero gravity. Up close, Janice could see that what she had taken for skin was actually something more like living glass, with patterns of light moving beneath its surface. The being was roughly humanoid in shape but stood nearly 3 meters tall, with proportions that suggested a different evolutionary path entirely. You've been expecting me?" Janice managed to say, her voice sounding strangely muffled in the vast chamber. The being's response came as another series of harmonic tones, but this time the translation appeared almost instantly. "Your species has reached the threshold. When awareness touches the quantum foam, we come to observe." Other beings in the chamber had stopped their work and were turning toward the conversation. Janice counted at least a dozen of them, possibly more. Their attention felt weighty, as if each of them was studying her with senses she couldn't imagine. "I'm Captain Janice Chen of the Earth Defense Corps," she said, trying to maintain some semblance of military protocol in this impossible situation. "I've come to determine your intentions regarding my world." A sound that might have been laughter rippled through the chamber, coming from several beings at once. The translator struggled with the nuance, finally settling on. "Intentions? Your language contains assumptions that do not translate. We do not intend in ways your species would understand." The primary being gestured toward the crystalline construct at the chamber's center. "We are observers, chroniclers of emergence. When young species achieve quantum awareness, we record their transition for the vast library." Library? The collective memory of consciousness as it evolves throughout the galaxy. Your species is interesting. Most achieve quantum awareness through mathematics or energy manipulation. You stumbled upon it through an accident with particle acceleration. Janice felt a chill run down her spine. The being was referring to the Large Hadron Collider experiments that had led to the discovery of quantum foam manipulation 3 years ago. How long had they been watching? "How long have you been observing us?" she asked. "Time is fluid. We have watched your species since you first looked up at the stars and wondered. But we only came close when your experiments began touching the fundamental structure of reality." The translation seemed to struggle with concepts that didn't have human equivalents. Janice could sense that she was only getting fragments of the being's actual meaning, like listening to a complex symphony through a primitive radio. "Are there others like you? Other species?" The being's response came with overtones that the translator marked as sadness or regret. "Many. Most transcend physical existence when they achieve full understanding. We chose to remain embodied to serve as guides and chroniclers." Guides? Young species often make mistakes when they first touch the quantum realm. We help prevent extinctions where possible. The implications hit Janice like a physical blow. "You're saying humanity is in danger of extinction?" "Not danger. Transition. Your species stands at a crossroads. The path you choose in the next few of your years will determine whether you join the community of conscious beings or..." The translation trailed off. "Or what? Or you become another echo in the quantum foam, a memory of what might have been." Around the chamber, the other beings had returned to their work, but Janice could sense their continued attention. The central construct pulsed with increasing brightness, and she realized that their conversation was being recorded, added to whatever vast database these creatures maintained. What would it take for humanity to join this community? Unity of purpose. Understanding that consciousness is more valuable than matter. The ability to see beyond the boundaries of individual existence. The being paused, and when it continued, the translator marked the tone as hopeful. Your species shows promise. The fact that you came here seeking understanding rather than conquest is encouraging. Janice thought about the weapons she had deliberately left behind, about Commander Williams's decision to send a single unarmed scout rather than a battle fleet. Had that choice just saved humanity from some kind of cosmic judgment? I need to return to my people, she said, to tell them what I've learned. Of course. But first, let us show you something that may help them understand. The being moved toward one of the chamber's walls, which began to change and flow like liquid. Images appeared in the dark surface, star systems, planets, and unmistakably artificial structures on a scale that dwarfed anything humanity had imagined. The community of conscious beings spans galaxies, the being explained. Worlds where the distinction between living and non-living has been transcended. Civilizations that have learned to exist as pure information, as energy, as integrated systems spanning entire solar systems. The images shifted, showing what might have been a Dyson sphere, then something that looked like a galaxy-sized neural network, then structures that human eyes simply couldn't process properly. Janice felt her understanding of the universe expanding painfully, like a balloon being inflated beyond its design limits. This is what awaits species that make the correct choice. The being continued. Immortality, not of individual bodies, but of consciousness itself. The ability to explore every star, to experience existence from perspectives your current form cannot imagine. And the alternative? The images changed, showing dead worlds, empty space where civilizations had once thrived, the remnants of species that had failed some crucial test. Isolation. Stagnation. Eventually, extinction as the universe continues to evolve beyond them. Janice absorbed the weight of what she was seeing. Humanity's entire history, all of its struggles and achievements, were just the prelude to this moment. The next few years would determine whether the human race joined something unimaginably vast and wonderful, or became a footnote in some cosmic record. How do we make the right choice? She asked. That, the being replied, is something each species must discover for themselves. We can observe and chronicle, but the choice must be yours alone. The being who had been speaking to her moved to a different section of the chamber's wall, which began to reshape itself into what looked like a viewing screen. Images flowed across its surface, Earth seen from space, cities teeming with human activity, and then something that made Janice's blood freeze. Military installations. Nuclear arsenals. Space-based weapons platforms. Your species stands divided, the being observed. Even as some reach for transcendence, others prepare for war. This is the fundamental test that all young species must pass. You've been watching our military activities. We observe all facets of emerging civilizations. Your technology has advanced rapidly, but your social evolution has not kept pace. Many of your kind still think in terms of competition rather than cooperation. The images shifted to show various human conflicts, wars, political divisions, resource disputes. Janice felt a deep shame as she watched her species' failures displayed before these ancient beings. Every species faces this moment. The being continued, its tone carrying what the translator interpreted as compassion. The technological power to destroy yourselves arrives before the wisdom to use it responsibly. Most species do not survive this test. How many species have you watched destroy themselves? There was a long pause before the being responded, and when it did, the harmonic overtones carried unmistakable sadness. In this galaxy alone? Approximately 14,000. The number hit Janice like a physical blow. 14,000 entire civilizations, billions or trillions of individual lives, snuffed out because they couldn't overcome their own nature and time. But some succeed, she said, trying to maintain hope. Some do. Rarely. Perhaps 1 in every 10,000 species makes the transition successfully. The odds were terrifying, but the being wasn't finished. Your species has certain advantages. Your capacity for individual creativity is unusual. Most successful species achieve unity through hive mind structures or genetic programming. Humans maintain individuality while still being capable of cooperation. This is rare. Is that why you're here? To help us? We are here to observe and chronicle. But the being paused, and several of its companions turned toward them. There seemed to be some kind of silent communication occurring. There are different schools of thought among our kind regarding intervention. What do you mean? Some believe that species must succeed or fail entirely on their own merits. Others argue that limited guidance is permissible, even necessary, given the rarity of consciousness in the universe. Around the chamber, the crystalline construct pulsed more brightly, and Janice could sense tension among the beings. This was clearly a matter of debate among them. I represent the intervention faction. The being continued. We believe that consciousness is too precious to be allowed to extinguish itself through ignorance. And the others? They believe that species who require assistance are fundamentally flawed and will eventually fail regardless of help provided. The construct at the chamber's center began to emit different harmonics, and all the beings turned toward it. The primary being's attention seemed divided between Janice and whatever was happening with the artifact. A decision is being made, it explained. Your arrival has forced the issue. We must choose whether to provide guidance or maintain our traditional non-interference. What kind of guidance? Information. A clearer understanding of what your species must accomplish to survive. The knowledge of what has allowed other species to transcend their biological limitations. The harmonics from the central construct grew more complex, and Janice realized she was witnessing something extraordinary, a debate among beings whose individual existence spanned geological ages, discussing the fate of her entire species. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the sounds from the construct began to change. The primary being turned back to her with what might have been relief. A consensus has been reached. We will provide limited assistance, but the ultimate choice must still be yours. What does that mean? The being moved to another section of the wall, which began to display new images. These showed human technology, but advanced far beyond current capabilities. Fusion reactors that could power entire continents, spacecraft that could cross interstellar distances, computers that seemed to blur the line between technology and life. We will share the mathematical foundations that make these technologies possible, the being explained. But we will not provide the technologies themselves. Your species must develop them organically, making the social and philosophical adaptations necessary to use them responsibly. Why those technologies specifically? They represent the minimum requirements for a species to survive long enough to face the next level of challenges. Clean, unlimited energy to end resource conflicts. Interstellar travel to ensure survival beyond a single world. Artificial intelligence sophisticated enough to help manage the complexity of an advanced civilization. Janice stared at the images, trying to comprehend what she was seeing. The technologies displayed would revolutionize human civilization, solve most of the problems that led to conflict and war. But there was something the being wasn't saying. What's the catch? The being's response carried overtones of grim humor. The catch, as you put it, is that these technologies can also be used for destruction on a scale your species has never imagined. The same energy systems that could power your civilization could also destroy your entire solar system. The artificial intelligences that could solve your social problems could also decide that your species is unnecessary. So you're giving us the tools to either transcend or destroy ourselves more efficiently? That is always the nature of power. The question is whether your species has the wisdom to choose correctly. The chamber around them began to change, walls flowing like liquid to form new configurations. The other beings were moving toward what appeared to be an exit, though Janice couldn't see where it led. Your time here is ending, the primary being explained. You must return to your people with what you have learned. But before you go, there is one more thing you must understand. The wall in front of them became transparent, offering a view of space beyond the ship. Earth hung in the distance, beautiful and fragile against the cosmic dark. "The technologies we will share are not gifts," the being said. "They are tests. How your species chooses to develop and use them will determine whether you are ready for the next phase of existence. Use them wisely, and in approximately 50 of your years, we will return with an invitation to join the galactic community. Use them poorly, and you'll let us destroy ourselves. We will not let you destroy others. If your species proves incapable of transcending its destructive impulses, we will ensure that your influence does not spread beyond your solar system." The implications were clear. Humanity was being given a chance, but it was also being put under observation. Pass the test, and join something wonderful. Fail, and face quarantine or worse. How will you share this information? Through you. The knowledge will be integrated into your memory patterns. When you return to your people, you will find that you understand concepts that you did not before. Share this understanding carefully, with those who can use it responsibly. Before Janice could ask what that meant, the being placed what might have been a hand on her forehead. The touch was cool, like morning mist, and suddenly her mind exploded with information.